Hi guys, this is Carlin Liborio with TeachingRLA with Carlin Liborio. And this is part two of a video series that I'm making. And this one is about a training that I did with WestEd and TEA. It was a scoring training with educator committees in January of 2023. And before I get started, this video is going to be showing you the fourth grade anchor papers. This is for training and informational purposes only. These scores were decided on by a group of educators, not TEA. TA was in the room and they helped to clarify questions, but they did not score these or write the annotations. These scores and annotations were written by educators in a room collaborating and agreeing on these scores, and we agreed on the annotations after going through the training. This was part of the process that we did to show that we understood at the end. So it's kind of like our exit ticket. This was done on the last day, and we ran out of time to complete all of the annotations. But WestEd and TEA said that they will finish these and clean them up, and then they will be compiled. My understanding is they will be compiled with other educator groups and published on the TEA website at some point in the future when they are all finished. They did say that we were allowed to share this information because it will be public. And I also want to say that I am a fourth grade teacher and I'm not affiliated in any way with TEA, STAR, or WestEd. I'm only sharing what I learned from the training in order to help other educators. Okay, so this was the passage for fourth grade that we looked at in order to do the training. And it's an article about mushrooms. It's called A World of Their Own. And it basically goes into what the benefits of mushrooms. So I'm just gonna and you can pause if you wanna go ahead and read this. You're welcome to pause the video. And then this has some pictures. Talks about how the roots connect there's a connection between the trees, and the root connection sends the sugar to the younger trees in the forest, which can't get the sunlight they need to make sugar themselves. It talks about how animals form connections with mushrooms. Some insects produce a bed for mushrooms to grow on, and they break down their food and give the minerals. And then it talks about the human connection. So there's lots of evidence in the article that tells you all the reasons and all the ways that mushrooms are important. Okay, so then this is the prompt. Read the article, A World of Their Own. Based on the information in the article, write a response to the following. Explain how the author emphasizes the importance of mushrooms throughout the article. So it has to be, I want you to focus on these words throughout the article. It has to be not just one part of the article. The student has to really show how mushrooms are important in different parts of the article throughout the whole article. Write a well-organized informational composition that uses specific evidence from the article to support your answer. I want you to also take note of this word informational. That tells the student whether they are writing argumentative or informational. Also, you might be wondering why this word is here when you might have seen this word as essay in other examples. So I asked that question and I said, why does it have the word composition? And the answer that TA gave me is because the word composition is the word in the TEKS. So that is the word that they wanted to use. So I don't know if it's going to have the word essay or the word composition, but I think that we just need to teach that word synonyms for that word, just like how we teach theme is the author's message. Theme is also the same as a lesson. So I think just teaching them that informational, teach them that word. They should know that's a ECR, informational, and composition is an essay. And if we're using the words in the TEKS when we're doing our we will, I will, and we're using that language of the TEKS, then it shouldn't be a surprise. And they will also see these bullet points, and that's how they also know that it's a ECR. And then it says, write your response in the box provided. So this is fourth grade actual student answers. And keep in mind, this was given for the field test. So these students had not been taught how to write an essay. This was just what they wrote based on the directions. And so you're going to see a lot of variety and not a lot of, 4-paragraph essays, because that's not, they hadn't really been taught that when they did these. I'm sure that as the years go on, the examples will get better and better that they will put in the scoring guides. Okay, so this one, we gave it a 0. So I'm going to pause here. So in case you want to pause the video and read it. So mushrooms don't really move around. They can release oxygen, which is something we need to breathe. It's called photosynthesis. It's basically a huge run on sentence with, let's see, there's one period right here. So because they didn't really answer the question of anything about how mushrooms were important, or how the author showed that they were important, all it says is that they release oxygen, which we need to breathe, but then that's not called photosynthesis. So that part made it a bit confusing. So when we decided, we had to basically look through about, I don't know, 30, there's actually about 50 essays, but we only got through probably 20 or 30. And this was the one that we all agreed. There was about 7 or 8 of us in the group, all different grade levels. And after we had all done the training, um, you know, which is in my other video, this was the last day where we, from the training, we had to decide which paper is a really solid 0. And that would be the one that we choose for the anchor paper. And we had to all agree in order to put it on this document. So this is the one we chose for the 0 because it doesn't answer the question. We didn't write an annotation for this one. We decided to go back to it, and then we ran out of time. So this one was an anchor 1. We gave it a 1 and a 0. So that means we gave it a 1 for organization, ideas, and development. And we gave it a 0 for conventions. Okay, so what we wrote here is we said, well, first it says the author tells me the importance of mushrooms by writing what mushrooms don't use the sun to make their own food, but they give minerals to insects. So this student, we felt like, the teachers felt like, that they do have a central idea. The central idea is present, and that's really the first thing you look at. Does it have a central idea? So you'll notice when you read the annotations, in the scoring guide, you will see that they always start off with the central idea, and then they usually put that in parentheses. So the central idea is present, and the writer has an attempt at evidence. No punctuation, capitalization, or sentence structure, and also spelling errors. So we gave it a 0 for conventions. Also, keep in mind, in the other video, I mentioned that if it's very short, then that's different as far as conventions. So if they don't have a lot to look at and there's no periods in this, and they have spelling and they have capitalization, that's pretty much going to be a 0. If they didn't have as many errors, it would maybe be a 1, but it's not going to be a 2 because it's too short. So I hope that makes sense. But this one, we gave it a 1 and a 0. At least it got something though. So, okay. This one is an anchor 2. So we felt like this was a solid 2. We gave this one a 2, which this score is kind of rare. I find a lot of my students get 2-0, but in the scoring guide, I didn't really see a 2-0. So I think this is a good example of fourth grade. How the author emphasizes the importance of mushrooms is by telling us it can help trees by giving the tree minerals and nutrients. In return, the trees give mushrooms sugar, but the trees are not also what mushrooms help. They also help insects by breaking down their food and giving them nutrients. So the reason we gave this one a 2, and we did do a lot of annotations for this one, In this response, the writer presents a central idea, and then you have to give the central idea. How the author emphasized the importance of mushrooms is by telling us it can help trees by giving the tree minerals and nutrients. No introduction or conclusion is present. The writer, and that might be why it didn't get a 3. You can see it does not have an introduction or conclusion. The writer provides limited paraphrased evidence, so it has some evidence. In return, the trees give mushrooms sugar. So you have to give your proof in the parentheses or in the quotes when you're score. The expression of ideas is basic because the writer's word choice is general. An example of this is but the tree are not also what mushrooms help. Overall, this response reflects a partial understanding of the writing purpose. So we gave this one a 2. And you can see how we felt like they gave the central idea and they gave some evidence. So that's why we gave it a 2. For conventions, though, it got a 0 because the writer demonstrates little to no command of grade level appropriate conventions with many errors in sentence construction. Run-on sentences, spelling, lack of punctuation impacts the clarity of the writing and the reader's understanding of the writing. So again, this is not the score that TEA gave it. This is the score that we gave it. So you might agree or disagree, but we had, 7 or 8 educators and we all agreed on this. So take it for what it is and hopefully you can learn something from what we scored it. Okay, this one we gave it an anchor 3. So we gave it a 2 for organization and development, but this time we gave it a 1. I don't know why these numbers say this, but anyway, let's look at it. Because like I said, this was not the final copy. This was just kind of going through the process of scoring a paper and what the scores would go through. Okay, so this one says the importance of mushrooms are key to almost every ecosystem in the world. Tell us how they are important in forests, in how they help the tree get nutritious minerals from rocks. In return, the mushroom gets sugar. This is in paragraphs 5 and 6, where it says, but what trees have difficulty doing is getting nutritious minerals from rocks. In return, the tree gives them sugar. They also have a connection with insects, with the mushroom, break up their food, but before that, the insects build the mushrooms a nutritious mineral bed for the mushrooms to grow on. The human connection is that we use the mushrooms as a medicine and industry for millions of people to use. Okay, so we gave it a 1. I think this is wrong. I think this is supposed to be a 2 because the conventions are pretty bad. So I think this was a mistake. Okay, so the writer presents the controlling idea that the importance of mushrooms are key to almost every ecosystem in the world. So they have that central idea. This is not supposed to say controlling idea. That's because we had a lot of 8th grade and high school teachers in the group, and so we kept that word changes depending on the grade level. So for 4th grade, it's central idea. Okay, so it does have a central idea. An introduction and conclusion are not present. The organizational structure is minimal because the response is a single paragraph. The writer provides paraphrased evidence. And overall, this response represents a limited understanding of the writer's purpose. And then for conventions, we gave it a 1 because I don't know why this says consistent command. Anyway, I don't know if maybe we changed our mind, but I think it does look like a 1 in my opinion. Okay, let's move on. Like I said, this was just a learning experience. So this is not definite. I'm sure TA is going to go over these and clean them up and change them and compare them to other groups. Okay, this one was an anchor 4. We felt like it was an anchor 4. And it says in the article, A World of Their Own, the author emphasized this article by telling how important mushrooms are to nature and humans. In A Helpful Friendship, the author explained the connection between the mushroom and trees. The structure is cause and effect. In A Bug's Life, the author explains that mushrooms are not just helpful to trees, but to bugs too. The structure is cause and effect. And in A Human Connection, the author also explains that humans use mushrooms too. This article mainly tells about how mushrooms help the environment grow. So they definitely hit on a lot of points that were throughout the article. So we gave it a 2 and a 2. We gave it a 2 for organization and a 2 for conventions. So they do have that central idea that the author emphasized the article by telling us how mushrooms are important to nature and to humans. It does have an organizational structure. It even gives the names of the sections. And it has a conclusion, which we felt the conclusion was this article mainly tells about how mushrooms help the environment grow. So it has that at the end. It kind of has an ending. And even if it's just one sentence, uh, that still counts. It can be multi-sentence, it can be one sentence. Relevant paraphrased evidence. The author explains that mushrooms are not just helpful to trees, but to bugs too. It's insufficiently explained. And that's why I didn't get a 3. The expression of ideas is basic because the writer's word choice is general. Overall, this response reflects a partial understanding of the writer's writing purpose. So this is the order that we look at. And so word choice is important. Um, the evidence, whether it is really sufficiently explained. So they had pretty good evidence, they just didn't explain it that well. And that's why I didn't get a 3. So I hope that makes sense. Conventions, we gave it a 2 out of 2, which is the highest you can get for conventions. We said the writer demonstrates a consistent command of grade level appropriate conventions, a few errors in spelling, environment, which is a pretty big word, punctuation, do not impact the clarity of the writing. So I'm going to show you that again. And you can see, even though it has very few mistakes, still has mistakes, but very few, and it doesn't impact the clarity. So that gave it a 2. And so it was a 4 out of 5. Okay, Anchor 5. This is what we gave for Anchor 5. The author, and this is the highest score you can get. So this is fourth grade. The author is emphasizing the importance of mushrooms by dividing it up into sections. First, the passage explains how trees and mushrooms have a relationship. It says that trees have trouble getting minerals from rocks, so mushrooms help by breaking down the rocks. Because the mushrooms already break down their food, it makes it easy to break down the rocks for the trees. Look at these sentence connections and transitions. In exchange, the trees give the mushrooms some sugar. Next, it talks about the mushrooms and how they have a relationship with some insects. The insects provide the mushrooms with a nutritious bed for them to grow on. In exchange, the mushrooms break down the insects' food and give them minerals. Last, it talks about how humans can benefit from mushrooms. People cook mushrooms to put on their food all the time, all over the world. People can also find new ways of using mushrooms for medicine and industry. David McLaughlin, a researcher of plant biology, thinks that. He also believes that we can use mushrooms to help other living things. For example, if we plant more mushrooms in the forest, more trees will grow. That is how the author emphasizes the importance of mushrooms. So we said it was a 3 because the writer offers a clear central idea, and then we gave the central idea. The writer provides an effective conclusion. The organization effectively supports the central idea by focusing on each section of the passage. So it everything that the student wrote all went back to the central idea, importance of mushrooms. So we felt like it was really connected. The writer includes some sentence-to-sentence transitions, first, next, last. The writer provides relevant evidence that consistently supports and develops the central idea. For example, if we plant more mushrooms in the forest, more trees will grow. That's an example of that. That was in the student's own words. So you can tell that they really explained it because they put something in their own words from their own brain that came right after the evidence. The expression of ideas is clear, as almost all sentences contribute to the overall quality of the response, and the writer's word choice is specific. So I would, you know, show your students this example of how specific the word choice is. Overall, this response reflects a thorough understanding of the writing purpose. For conventions, we gave it a 2, which is the highest you can get, because even though it has some mistakes and it's important for your students to see, you can still get a 5 if you have some mistakes, but you still want to check it over and do the best you can do. But it has grade level appropriate conventions. It all depends on the grade level. A few errors in spelling, but look at the type of spelling errors. They're all pretty big words. Do not impact the clarity of the writing. So, yes, there's a few mistakes, but the periods are excellent, the capitalization, the sentence structure, most of the words are spelled correctly, except for, those 3 that we mentioned. So, as you can see, even though it's not written in paragraphs, it has a structure. So, and this might have been before the student learned how to do paragraphs. It was last year. Okay, and that was the last one that we did. And like I said, it was pretty challenging to go through the rubric and write these ourselves. But this was the thing that I would say I learned the most by doing this. When you actually have to look at the essay and then you have to prove to each other in this educator group why that's the score. Sometimes we would say, well, let's change our mind. I don't think we have enough evidence to prove that that's a 1 or 2 or 3. And sometimes, and that's what took us so long, is when you go through this process, and you have to prove it, you really sometimes you have to scratch it and find a different anchor paper that's more solid. So the anchor papers are what they use to train the scorers. So those are super important, and they use a combination of the anchor paper with the rubric, the language of the rubric, which, as you can see, the language of the rubric is all throughout this. And it all follows the same order. Central idea, then it goes into the organization structure, then it goes into the evidence. Does it support? Is it relevant? Then it goes into explaining. Then it goes into expression of ideas. Is clear, sentence construction, word choice. And the last sentence always goes back to, does it reflect a thorough understanding of the writing purpose? And if it does, then that's usually a 3. If it's partial, then it would, be a 2, or lack 1, no understanding 0. The writing, consistent command to grade level appropriate conventions, that always comes first. And then the impact, the clarity of the writing is what you always end with. And you will notice in the scoring guide, they have to give proof of why it is that score. So hopefully that makes sense. And then these were some other ones that I'm just going to scroll through. These are actually part of the practice set. So this is showing you when we did, I don't know if we did a practice set on this, but I'm just going to scroll and you can pause it. But this one, we didn't do this one. I don't know if we scored it like this. I can't remember, but I think we gave this one a 1 and a 2. We didn't write annotations for these. Some of these don't have scores. This one, I think we gave it a 2 and a 2, or someone gave it a 2 and a 2. And then Lots of examples here. This one also is a 2 out of 2. I mean, a 2 for organization and a 2 for convention. So this would be a 4 out of 5, or when 2 people scored, it would be an 8 out of 10. And again, this is going to look different for 5th grade. This is going to look different from 7th grade. But these were the samples for 4th grade. So I'm hoping that 3rd grade teachers watching this are going to feel better knowing that, 3rd grade is going to, either be similar to this or a little bit less because it is a different grade level. So I think if we can get our student, and this just keeps going on and on, it has a million pages. But anyway, if we can get our students writing, this or even better, then those are going to be 5s. Even the 4, I think, is doable. So I hope this video helped you to understand more about the ECR for 4th grade and 3rd grade. I don't have any examples of 3rd grade. I'm sorry. I wish I did. But hopefully this still helps the 3rd and 4th grade teachers out there. And I will put links in the description to my Facebook page and YouTube channel and my Teacher Pay Teacher store, which has lots of resources to help you with teaching ECRs. All right. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.